What do Survivor, Fear the Walking Dead or Next and Afraid have in common? Well, as soon as survival starts, they look for water. It's literally the first thing a human does when returning to his primal instinct. How do we bring that sense back into the life of 330 million Americans? That's the question we'll try to answer with my first tip: better communicate about the water challenges. Oh, bravo, that's so easy. It's a pity no one ever thought of it before a French genius suggested it.
You sound angry.
I'm damn angry.
I know, don't be mad.
Take a breath.
Let me explain. To get a sense of what we're discussing here, see what a student I met in New York shared.
Water is an issue that people don't realize is a problem, or they don't realize how complicated it is, and they also don't realize that there is a whole industry invested in trying to make things better. I think the industry is not intentionally closed off. It's harder to find, especially now that we're in Climate Week. A lot of my classmates in school, a lot of times they talk about energy, they talk about carbon, they talk about the renewable transition, some of them talk about reducing waste. Like, those are all incredibly important conversations, but admittedly, they get way more attention than the water conversation does.
We get it, the water sector is lame at communicating the challenges it faces, but to quote Mark Zuckerberg, don't be too proud to copy. Why would we always want to reinvent the wheel? Let's just apply what worked for other sectors and verticals. Look at climate change mitigation. Its zero carbon rallying call is known to everyone. Where's our equivalent for water? If we find it, Beshal Aldaroui's ask will come true.
Hopefully in 10 years, people will get why water is something essential, and not just the water we drink, but also it's the water infrastructure and everything around it.
Number 2, explain how the private sector can and is willing to help. One risk with the daunting water challenges we face is to give people the impression that it's a lost cause. Doom and gloom only work to a certain extent. We also need hope. So now imagine that a significant portion of the solution comes with a bad rap. People have seen Netflix's Rotten and are now convinced big water and the private bottled water moguls are the devil's reincarnation.
Hello.
You know what? It may be. I honestly don't know, and don't bother, because private capital's involvement in solving the water infrastructure, quality and delivery challenge is an entirely different topic.
There is also a knowledge gap or educational gap around private capital.
We have to know where we're starting from.
I've often been very quick to dismiss the role of the private sector. I've often been led to believe that the privatization of water is inherently and unequivocally harmful. It is going to limit access. It is going to make water more expensive.
And indeed, those are the kind of things we hear on a regular basis. While I was in New York, I got contacted by the Epoch Times to comment on private capital's rampant takeover of America's water.
Okay, now that's scary.
Bonus points if it were throwing money. All concerns are always legit. I believe having a critical eye is always beneficial. Yet, one must also remain objective. The recent catastrophes that hurt the American water infrastructure had much more to do with the repeated public underfunding and natural disasters than with a greedy private sector taking over.
People are afraid about this consolidation issue. What happens if this leads to monopolization? What happens if it leads to corporations taking advantage of us? And I said, why would you necessarily think that it's all or nothing?
As James Rees and Seth Siegel suggest, we will have to keep explaining how it will take a village to solve the mess we're in, and that the private sector is an essential stakeholder in this village, willing to do its part. I hope I can convey that message as efficiently as the Rethinking Water conference did for some of the students I met.
But listening to the harsh realities of the water sector or water infrastructure is extremely underfunded in the United States. And one way to overcome it, very pragmatically and feasibly, is by privatizing elements of it. And I think that was a hard pill to swallow, because it's acknowledging that what I've been told in class might be wrong.
Now, to spread the message, we may also need to, number 3, get better at communication.
There are a lot of people working in water. There are 1.3 million Americans who work in water, but there are not a lot of water people who are writers and speakers.
That's absolutely true, and it is probably not so much of an issue, as Seth Siegel and his peers are doing a terrific job at representing us on these bigger scenes. But that doesn't prevent every single of the 1.3 or 1.7, depending on the definition, million water professionals from contributing to the communication effort. How can it be that if anyone's vegan or investing in crypto, all his relatives know about it, while people living with water professionals still believe water appears by magic at the tap and disappears when we flush? I'm being extremely happening on purpose, but there's pride to have in providing 330 million US citizens with reliable, pure and wholesome water, and in protecting the environment with state-of-the-art wastewater treatment. That's step one in better water communication, global sector advocacy. But it doesn't stop there.
We found people couldn't access a lot of the wealth of data that was out there on climate information. And so it's not just a rethinking of how do we do our operations, but also how do we access the data, how do we use it, and how do we start manipulating it for the future to figure out how to actually put it into action.
That's step two, more and better transparency. There is hardly an element that's as closely tested and monitored as drinking water. Why is it still so difficult for an end user to know about it? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Digital tools are ready to help. It's about time to reap their benefits. Number 4, get better at marketing. Yet another communication topic? Not at all.
What's marketing? Is it a billboard? Is it a press release? No, it's actually understanding a value proposition, right? There is a value proposition to fairly well anything that is sold, right? And so there is a value proposition for water that the incumbent, which is to say the water industry, needs to address. Like, what is the value of water?
That sounds so trivial when Tom Rooney explains it, but it is the critical hurdle we have to overcome as a sector to finally unlock the $1 trillion we discussed in the second chapter. Why would anyone in his right mind invest such an amount in water without expecting at least a minimal return on investment? Water is a profitable investment space, and we must repeatedly outline its value proposition so that anyone gets convinced that first, it's true, and second, that it's excellent news.
That's positive thinking.
We've seen in the first chapter how there's a 5-to-1 expected return on investment for water projects in the US, given we solve our wrong pocket symptom.
Sorry, wrong pocket.
And if everyone agrees, there's a value proposition justifying a 500 times more expensive bottled water without a phone. It shouldn't be impossible to do the same for tap water. Number 5, increase the water sector's attractiveness. We've seen how money is not the only good we struggle to attract in the water sector. We also face a silver wave. Yet, there are incredible stories to write about the coolness of our sector. On the material side, it's one of the best paying sectors for the lowly qualified workforce. According to the Brookings Institute, it pays up to 50% more to workers at lower ends of the income scale.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
But there's more.
Starting a water business doesn't require a marketing makeup to turn a candy into a vitamin. As a standard, almost every water business is by definition a painkiller. And what's cooler than explaining to everyone that you simultaneously save their lives on a daily basis by providing safe drinking water, you save their jobs by ensuring the American industry stays water and climate change resilient, and protect the environment and its natural services by treating wastewater. Oh, I see. Silicon Valley's cooler. But is it really?
You got a lot of folks getting in the tech industry. But if you're going to digitize and rethink water, just like folks have iPhones and Samsungs, we need people to be thinking about water and wastewater at the same scale or even greater.
And unlike Amazon, Twitter, or Facebook, our sector isn't firing anyone anytime soon. You mad, Tim Cook?
I could not be happier.
Number 6, empower a new generation. On the same line of thought, we need not only to attract people to the water sector, but also to get young people.
I know that sounds weird, but I mean...
Let me explain myself.
First, as we've just seen, because we simply need more workforce, but also and above because we need a fresh breeze, mindset, and rebalance of the age pyramid.
We need universities around the world to begin to offer scholarships to young folks to get into the water and wastewater industry. You also gonna need, even at a local level, whether it's mayors, youth councils, or even in high school and elementary school, to begin to talk about the importance of water.
I've explained how solving the water challenges will take a village. Universities will have to play their role in this village.
Tell the communities they deserve better, and tell the communities that the university will support them in seeking to achieve better, and then working with the agencies to say, you're going to deliver better.
If we follow the traditional approach and climate change doesn't impact us beyond what we expect, we need $1 trillion to bring the system in balance. Yet, that's two strong conjectures, hoping for climate disruption to go as planned and betting on $1 trillion when a once-in-a-lifetime infrastructure bill just capped at 10 times less. A way to take control of our destiny here may be to double down on innovation, speed of adoption, and replication of best practices. Who better than the young generation to help achieve precisely this? Number 7. copy what works. I just mentioned this replication of best practices, and I already quoted Mark Zuckerberg's famous unofficial Facebook motto, "Don't be too proud to copy." Well, really, we shouldn't bother reinventing the wheel when it already exists in our cousin or adjacent sectors.
The water sector, if you compare it to the energy sector, it lags by 7 years. To paraphrase this one, is basically it will take the water sector today 7 years, assuming the energy utilities stop their digitization as they are now, it will take it 7 years to catch up with it.
And it's on us to take this as good news. Are they 7 years ahead? Awesome! That means we already have a 7 years plan. Is decentralized water and wastewater treatment a good idea? Well, if Energy's microgrid is, that's a clear hint. Is circular water management going to hold water? Well, if the entire world switches to reinforce circularity, why would it be any different for us? And so on and so on. That also means we shouldn't behave as a silo. Many of the most brilliant minds I got to meet on my podcast have built awesome things in water, coming from an adjacent or sometimes even entirely different sector. That's not a threat, that's a blessing. Number 8. Walk the talk. I know it's annoying to hear me preaching what shall be done.
Self-awareness could be helpful for you.
It's so easy, right? This is why walking the talk is so important. Sure, the water sector by itself doesn't consume so much water, but still.
We are a business, so what I'm saying others should be doing, we're doing ourselves in terms of our own sustainability commitments and goals.
We're all getting familiar with the concept of a footprint, be it carbon or water. What Patrick Decker suggests here is that we shall take care of our handprint. Not that it significantly changes the balance, but because it sends a message. What we suggest others to do, we first apply it to ourselves.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Number 9. Strive to influence. For all of this to be successful, we need to get the word out. I already mentioned how each water professional shall make it his mission to explain to everyone he's coming across what needs to be said about water. But we also need to invest in the next stage.
We need advocates, people like me, people like you, venture capital, even government. We heard from the EPA and FEMA today saying, yeah, we need people coming out of university. We need new talent with new ideas to help solve this.
I'm not saying we need a Kim Kardashian of water. I'm not even sure that would help much. But we need to empower water professionals to go past the Dunning-Kruger syndrome and share their knowledge.
Tell us about it. Tell us the story.
The water challenges won't solve themselves all alone, and governments, corporations, or trade associations won't succeed on their own. We need each of us to surpass our fears, overcome the apprehension to speak up, and tell the world what we know best. There are solutions to these daunting water threats.
Thank you!
To that extent, we shall get inspired by approaches like Seth Siegel's.
I never wanted to write a book about, oh my God, the world is falling apart. I wanted to write a book about, oh my God, the world is falling apart, and here are the solutions.
Doom and gloom have their merits. It's an opportunity to open everyone's eyes. But once they're open, we have to also show solutions. And we know plenty, as I exposed in this entire series. Good news, it turns out that Rubik's Cube is possible to solve. Yes, the tiles are mixed, and yes, it might sometimes be quite intricate, but there is a path to success. First, we have to acknowledge the challenge: the broken infrastructure, broken policy, broken economics, and the sector's conservatism. But that's not a definitive doom. Each of these challenges comes with its own solution. If we fix the broken economics, we will have the leverage to fix the broken infrastructure and prevent it from breaking further. And if policies get installed and enforced, the economic layer will have its ideal counterparts to grow sustainably. Now for the conservatism, I guess if you've watched me thus far, you're probably part of the sector's fraction that wants to move the needle and get things done. Let's not worry too much about the others. If we're convincing enough, they will follow our steps. We can do this, right?
I'm sure we can show them an example of good manners to take back with them.
Let's prove to everyone that water can be a sustainably profitable field where the right blend of the right capital can make the most impact. Private capital and private know-how will do miracles if allowed to, while public means will round it off, supported with new approaches like philanthropic involvement when needed. None of these sources have the power to rock the boat all alone, but blended, we know them to be unstoppable. Will tomorrow's infrastructure resemble the existing one? Probably not. The world's digitization solution also opens new perspectives for the water sector, and from point-of-use treatments to point of entry or distributed assets, one thing's for sure, the solution will be widely decentralized. This doesn't mean we shall disrupt what works. The system will simply evolve over time and tend to that new equilibrium where water fit for purpose will be produced much closer to its users. To get the ball rolling, we will need to become world-class at communication, marketing, and education. I guess it boils down to allowing us to influence the world we live in for the better. Again, if we walk the talk and bring a new generation on board, I don't see anything preventing us from striving in the future. Yet, the water world is a moving target, and it keeps evolving under the influence of a lot of internal and external factors. So if you want to keep up with that wind of change, I'd be happy to support you. Just subscribe to my podcast, shameless plug, and I'll have you covered.
Yeah, you better do that.
These final words conclude over 6 months of intense work on the rethinking the American water scene shall undergo. I hope you've enjoyed hopping on that journey with me. If you did, the best reward you can give me is to subscribe to this channel. I'm sure you will help me spread the word, so let me conclude with these last 2 words. Thank you.